Hey everyone, in this video we will be looking at how we can implement the complete and delete actions for to-do list items, and of course how we can update the React state to reflect all the changes that we do in a to-do list. So let's get started. And let's begin by implementing the action handler for the complete task. So here I'm going to use the onClick handler, and I'm going to again give it a method name which is going to be handle complete task. Right, so here I'm going to implement this method. So in here, const handle complete task, and this will need to do some kind of change in our state. So what we're going to do is that we're going to give this the index of our task. So how we can give that index, right? So here we're going to put a function that actually calls this, and I'm going to give the index as a parameter. So now this is going to actually call a function handle complete task, giving it a parameter of the index of the task. So the to-do list, actually each of the to-do is being rendered with the index. So when I pass the index, we can actually reference exactly which index is this task there. So now what all we need to do is that if I want to complete a task, I want to actually make it look a bit grayed out. So what we're going to do is to add a state here which is called is completed, and by default this is going to be false for all of them. So let me add this to all of the tasks, and when we are going to press this complete button, this handler which is going to take the index will actually update this state inside this object to become true. So how are we going to do that? So now what we need to do is to actually take the to-dos, and we call it new to-dos, and let's put it into array which expands the existing to-do state using the spread operator. Now that we have done this, what we are going to do is that we're going to update the specific index of this to-dos. So for example, we can do new to-dos. At this specific index, I'm going to get back an object, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to dot it and say that is completed property that you see here is going to be true. And now we need to set the state. So set to-dos, and I'm going to give this new to-dos as the new list of to-dos that is being updated. Okay, that's about it. But how do we actually show it on the UI that our task is being completed? So to do that, we are actually going to use some styles, and we're going to show the user that this is a completed task. So one of the easiest and most straightforward ways is to actually use something like a strikethrough, that we can show the user, hey, this task is completed, hence we show it as a strikethrough. So how are we going to do that? That's going to be in the title. I'm going to put in a class name, and now we are going to do a very conditional logic. So if in the to-do, if it is completed, I'm going to use the ternary operator here. So if it is completed, if I see a true, then I need to render a class name of completed. If it is not, then I'm going to put is as incomplete. Right? So how does the class name behave? We have to add the individual classes in our style sheet. So in our app.css, we are going to add this .todos. So in here, I'm going to put in a class name for each of that. So it's a completed task. Then I want to strikethrough, right? So here in the CSS, how can we implement a strikethrough is simply by using the text decoration tag. I'm going to call the line through property. So if it's completed, I'm going to apply this property. And if it's not complete, I'm not going to do anything as of now, but just to make sure we see the difference, I'm just going to put a color of blue here so that we can see the difference if it's working. Right? So if it's complete, it will be in a completed class, and if it's incomplete, it gets an incomplete class. Let's go back to our UI to see how this works. I'm going to try and complete this. Wow, nice. We get a strike through immediately on the task. But do we still need the complete button once this task is complete? No, right? So what we're going to do is that we're going to also conditionally render this complete button. How do we do that? It's very simple. Again, once again, we're going to use the ternary operator, which is to do is completed. If it is complete, I want to render this button, so I'm going to put this here. But else, you render null. So null means render nothing. So we go back to the UI. Oh, oops. So what we need to do is that we need to check if it is not completed, then we render that. So here we can just swap this, or we can simply put an exclamation mark here, and that will swap our UI. So if it's already complete, then we don't need a complete button, and if it's not yet complete, we can complete the task. Isn't that super easy and it's dynamic? So that is great. So but what if we accidentally click complete? So then we can add an uncomplete button, but it's going to be really as similar as this. It's just going to be capturing the state and updating it, the is completed property, and then setting it back. So I'm not going to go into that, but instead let's focus on the delete button. So in here I'm going to add a new action handler for onClick, and I'm going to put it as handle delete task. So once again, I'm going to create a similar method, which is going to be const handle delete task, and I'm going to take the index of the task, and I'm going to have a method for that. So again, let's actually use a method to call this method with a parameter, with the argument, sorry. So here I'm going to pass the index. So whenever we are passing arguments to a function, we can use this kind of format where we actually call this round brackets, and then instead use this function, this shorthand for function, to call this function with an argument. So now that we have this, again, let's capture what we have existing in our to-dos. So new to-dos would be initialized with the existing state. Again, we have to do this because we can't play around with the state dynamically. So for example, you can't like do this on the state, because that would mean that you're updating the state directly, and that is not allowed in React. We have always to need to call this set state set state function to actually update the state. So now that we have the new to-dos, let's remove this index from the array. And the way that we do that is to use the splice method. So new to-dos dot splice, and I'm going to give it the index, and I also need to tell, if you look at this method definition, it says which is the number you want to delete, and delete count, how many items should you delete from that start point. I want to delete exactly one, which is the task. And then now I'm going to set the to-dos and put new to-dos as the new state. Let's save this, let's go back, and let's try to delete one of the tasks. And that's it. It's gone from the list. But when you refresh it, you will see all of them reinitialized again, because when you refresh the page, React has no memory. It is going to see, hey, I need to render this to-do list component, and this is going to be my default list of tasks I'm going to render. So a default list has these three tasks, and all of them are in the false, completed is in the incomplete state. So now that we have this, again, let's give all of our tasks a try. So let's even add a new task and try. So I'm just going to put a hello world here. I'm going to add this to do, and I'm going to try and complete this. Nice. And I'm going to delete this. Excellent. So once again, let's add a new task. Let's say, let me add a new task which says go for a jog at 5 p.m. I'm going to add this to do. Let me complete it. But if I don't want this task, I can't go for a 5 p.m. jog anymore. I want to delete it. I'm just going to press this, and it's gone from the list. So that's as simple as it gets with React. And now we have our complete and delete functionalities both ready. So that is super perfect. But in incomplete state, we realize that our text color is not blue. but that is a mistake on my end because the property should be just color. And now if you go back, we can see our text is all blue. So blue means in the incomplete state, and hence this CSS class is being rendered. So that's great. We have our complete and delete buttons working. And in the next step, what we're going to see is that how we can store and retrieve our task from the local storage when we are refreshing the page. Because when I refresh this, all of my additions or completions or deletions are gone. So how can we do that? Is to use something called local storage, which comes with every browser. So let's take a look at that. I hope you found this video to be really informative and useful to you, and if you did, do give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe below for more upcoming content. Catch you guys in the next video.